The United States has over 90,000 metric tons of nuclear waste that requires disposal. The U.S. commercial power industry alone has generated more waste than any other country, nearly 80,000 metric tons. This spent nuclear fuel, which can pose serious risks to humans and the environment, is enough to fill a football field about 20 meters deep. The U.S. government's nuclear weapons program has generated spent nuclear fuel as well as high-level radioactive waste and accounts for most of the rest of the total at about 14,000 metric tons, according to the Department of Energy. For the most part, this waste is stored where it was generated, at 80 sites in 35 states. The amount of waste is expected to increase to about 140,000 metric tons over the next several decades. However, there is still no disposal site in the United States. After spending decades and billions of dollars to research potential sites for a permanent disposal site, including at the Yucca Mountains site in Nevada that has a license application pending to authorize construction of a nuclear waste repository, the future prospects for permanent disposal remain unclear. Exposure to very high levels of radiation, such as being close to an atomic blast, can cause acute health effects such as skin burns and acute radiation syndrome, also known as radiation sickness. It can also result in long-term health effects such as cancer and cardiovascular disease. Exposure to low levels of radiation encountered in the environment does not cause immediate health effects, but is a minor contributor to our overall cancer risk. Some of the chronic health issues from radiation are gastrointestinal diseases, cardiovascular diseases, diseases of the nervous system, diabetes, and cancers. The scale of the potential health impacts to us is large and inapprehensive.
What we couldn't discuss is the fact that there's no way to store the waste from Diablo. We're not allowed to discuss that because it's a generic issue. It applies to all of the reactors. We cannot discuss the fact that there isn't adequate insurance. We are not allowed to discuss the fact that the emergency core cooling system has failed all of its scale model tests. So when you're playing their game, they're in total control. And if you look at the history of nuclear power in the federal government, you see that every reactor that's ever been built has been granted a license to operate. No matter what the objections are, no matter who the experts are that testify that the marine life will die, that there'll be cancer and leukemia, birth defects. And so you really begin to feel that you don't have any power, that you're just going through the motions.
It is difficult to propose a policy solution to the problem of nuclear waste. Most environmental policies, such as the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, and CERCLA, include exemptions from the Department of Defense when in the interest of national security. The Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, a treaty that would ban all nuclear test explosions from every country signed on, has made no traction in the 50 years of its negotiation. A policy alone might not be what gets this problem solved. Rather, we urge our audience to consider the power and influence that grassroots organizing has had on creating tangible, long-lasting change throughout our history.